The build-up to Salvation's Edge was nothing short of extraordinary, and almost a decade in the making. Yet when the fateful day arrived, the world of gaming was left feeling both shocked and annoyed that the crowning moment of the Light and Dark saga was all but ruined. Countless teams and creators had gone from showing the game, the progress, and the race to eventually showing nothing at all. Thousands of viewers around the globe descended into a blackout, but this wasn't a technical fault or a power outage. It was deliberate. To the more casual fans or returning, this was shocking and almost unbelievable. But to the more acquainted raid race enjoyers, this was unfortunately not a shock nor a surprise at all.
I love that he's bringing up this topic because this is a huge point of contention for the community in their experience for watching these world's first raid races. Blacking out your screen gives you an excellent strategic advantage to not teach the other teams, but the viewing experience is terrible. Literally, you're just watching a blacked out screen, so you have all of the top teams not even showcasing the raid race, so why are you even live in the first place, right? It's a big problem.
Competitive cauldron had been bubbling for years amongst the world's first raiders, with teams gradually hiding more and more information from viewers, until it would eventually boil over into a complete blackout at really the worst time possible. So where did the blurring, muting, and hiding screens all begin? Why is it happening? And most importantly, will it ever stop?
No.
Contrary to popular belief, raid racing hasn't always been a thing in Destiny. Back in 2014, when the Vault of Glass launched, barely any players even knew what the activity was. Even less were properly leveled to take on the challenge. And those who were had more to focus on than any sort of race against each other. At this time, Bungie weren't clearly incentivizing speed and racing, with no raid belts or even emblems for completions, and of course, contest difficulty was still years away.
To be fair, though, there was a clan, Prime Guard, that claimed they were very confident that they would get world's first. So even in the very first raid, the concept of a world's first race did exist, like with this Prime Guard clan, claiming they would get it, right? So even though it took Bungie many, many years to properly develop these world's first races by, creating contest mode, by establishing a world's first raid belt to, basically as to crown the team that won it, it has always existed because no matter what, when something new comes into the game, everyone wants to be first to accomplish that thing. Whether it's a raid race, whether it's achieving maximum power level, people are always chasing first.
Not to say that the competitive spirit didn't quickly blossom amongst the raiding community though. The existence of a placement leaderboard alone incentivized teams to push for a top spot, as well as collect that sweet raid loot before anyone else. The reality is that this took less than a year for many to be engulfed by raid race fever, as by the time Kingsfall came around in the fall of 2015, it was clear how important raid racing had become for Destiny.
Front becomes.
Front. No damage. Chest. Yes! Fuck! Yes! Whoa! Oh my fucking god! Bitches! Suck my dick!
By this point in Destiny, it was no doubt a race for top-end players, with the grand reward of bragging rights. Despite this competitive nature, there is no real record of screen hiding, buff blurring, or muting in any Destiny 1 raid race. But there may be one team who wishes that they did. There was actually a team leading Broman's team in Kingsfall before wiping to the brand new Final Stand mechanic. However, chatters from this stream found their way to T-Rex's stream to alert the team that there was a twist coming up in the Oryx fight.
I hear we have to hit him again after he's done, so just be wary, be ready.
I have literally I have one sniper shot.
This undoubtedly helped Broman's team become world's first champions in Kingsfall, and first foreshadowed the dangers of streaming your runs to the world. And
wow, it's crazy that it goes back that far to the second ever, I guess that would have been the third ever raid race that ever came out. No. Yeah, it would have been Vault of Glass and then Crota, and then this would have been the third ever, raid race. I mean, community-driven raid race, and it already had spies, right? And the spies, or they call them scouts, are going around basically distributing information from one chat to another to help people decipher the necessary mechanics. And honestly, you can't blame the teams for taking the information because the information is freely distributed to everyone, which makes things kind of a fair playing field. But it definitely feels frustrating when, for example, in this scenario, a team got this special information at the exact right time, and it led them to getting the world's first. You can't help but feel like that's not exactly how that's meant to happen, right?
Consequently leaking mechanics to your competitors. By the time Destiny 2 launched to the world, Raid Race fever had infected the whole community. As the Leviathan first opened up to players, top teams raced, hardcore fans competed, and some players were just there for the vibes.
There's a dog on the left.
Oh, you pollinize something and you give it the light for it to use photosynthesis.
Raid Race Day had quickly turned into a complete schedule clearer for many, as fans around the world gathered to watch the chaos unfold. However, it wouldn't be until Last Wish that Bungie themselves helped to properly propel the concept of a race. Up until Forsaken, the language in trailers would always present the raid as beginning or opening, while the trailer for Last Wish was the first to officially announce the concept of a world's first race. Bungie were willing to even go a step beyond that. The elusive golden wrestling style world's first belt would officially be up for grabs and claimed by the team who conquered the raid first, with these retrospective belts as the reward to the winners of all previous races too. An incentive would also be there for those who completed within the first 24 hours too, providing an incentive for those other than the top 1% to clear their calendars too. The existence of this belt and emblem instantly changed the dynamic of the DLC and raiding, with teams prepping harder than ever to the Dreaming City, and it soon became—
Absolutely. This was peak right here. Forsaken and the grind to get ready for this Forsaken raid was peak Destiny 2.
Clear that Last Wish was the perfect playground for the inaugural official race. As a few hours in, the first teams entered an encounter that would change the history of raid racing forever: the Vault. If you guys want some energy for the next raid race, make sure to use code EVAN at checkout for gamer subs. A puzzle of this magnitude had never been added to any raid in Destiny before, as teams were used to DPS focused encounters with much more minor tasks to complete to reach a damage phase. While one team had a glorious stroke of luck and brute force the encounter, the rest of the community scrambled to solve this devious creation. This encounter would turn out to be pivotal, as it would be the first time we would see teams cut audio and communication to hide their theories behind the encounter's solution. Data would turn off stream audio and later clear the encounter, and in doing
The controversy begins with data.
so may have unknowingly opened Pandora's box. Unfortunately for Math Class, this small advantage would not lead to a victory, with Dato's team falling infamously short of both the
The 2-minute karma came back to bite him.
world's first belt and the day one emblem. Muting the stream was certainly confusing for many viewers at the time, but it never became a significant talking point as the community were just so in awe of the sheer scale of Last Wish itself, as over 21 million stream hours were watched in the first month of Forsaken, with the world's first race itself heavily contributing towards that. Bungie would yet again up the ante upon the release of Crown of Sorrow, this time introducing a contest modifier to greatly increase the difficulty of day one.
And that's when the real races began right there. Contest, everything pre-contest, I put a little asterisk on because there was technically a raid race of sorts. It was kind of a community-driven thing. But after they announced contest and the world's first raid belts, they created a playing field that was even for everyone, because prior to Contest Crown, basically it was just like a handful of streamers that were even competing for this at all, because you would have to log in at reset time at the launch of a new expansion and play endlessly for like 15 hours a day, every day leading up to the raid, just to be properly leveled. And aside from the streamers in Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, no one has that kind of free time, especially when there is actually no real reward for doing so. So pre-contest world's first, not that they don't count, but I'm just saying that little asterisk next to them, because once they included contest, it became a proper competition and it changed everything.
More importantly, level the power playing field, as not to favor those who had excessively prepared. Raid racing both on the playing and viewer side would continue to grow through all these changes, with almost 170,000 concurrent viewers watching the fall of Galron, and 225,000 watching the Sanctified Mind crumble into the Vex Mill. By the time 2020 rolled around, raid racing had become so serious for some teams that they would practice under-leveled content beforehand and employ a 7th or even 8th member into the fire team to quote scout for them. This role sounds exactly like what it is. A coach or another voice separate from the team playing that is in charge of finding other teams in the lead and relaying that information to their team to catch up. This isn't uncommon to other raid racing games, but again, Destiny raid races are a day long, not a week-long event, so the role quickly became controversial. Scouts were slowly making their way to the mainstream upon the launch of Deepstone Crypt, as over 400,000 viewers on Twitch alone watched the destruction of Taniks for like the 50th time, or however many times we've killed him at this point. While scouting had sort of unofficially always been a thing, as we mentioned with Broman's completion of Kingsfall, Deepstone Crypt and the later Vaulted Glass remaster showed how fragile raid race leads could be in the world of raid racing. Through their own skill and team coordination, Elysium had blitzed through normal mode VOG remaster, as well as the Oracles and Templar challenge encounters, before finding themselves stuck at the freshly revamped Gatekeepers challenge. However, the commanding lead they had over all the other teams made it seem all but inevitable that they would still comfortably claim the win despite the small roadblock, until the role of scouts reared its controversial head into the community. Scouts for other teams watched through Elysium's challenge completions and relayed this information to their teams, equalizing Elysium's lead. Many would consider this as a foul play, and many thought Bungie should step in on this, but the majority quickly realized how this would be almost impossible to regulate, and therefore scouting was here to stay. I spoke to world's first winner Quaz from Team Elysium about this, and he had this to say, quote, "We first had a scout for VOW as we didn't have one for VOG, and since we nearly lost due to other scouts finding the Gatekeepers challenge from us, and we figured if all these other teams had a scout, we should have one too, so our chances to win aren't lowered." I remember seeing pictures on Twitter of scouts saying, "I'm prepared for day one," and having 5+ monitor setups with all different streams showing how much additional info one person can give. Bungie premiered Vow the Disciple to...
That's crazy. The scout situation is wild. There's not really a whole lot you could do to stop it because the free flow of information is not something you could necessarily restrict, especially if people are live streaming their gameplay in real time. The one thing that could be done from streamers is they can add a delay to their streams. Now, the problem with that is when you add a delay, then when an alert pops up or wherever their current progress in the game is, there would be behind that actual progress. So let's say, for example, you added a 30-minute delay to your stream. Well, when people are watching your stream, they're watching what you did 30 minutes ago. That is a potential workaround that streamers could do if they wanted to really avoid this. It might feel weird though, because one team could technically cross the finish line, and because another team has such a big delay on their stream, they could have technically gotten a world's first before them, but we haven't seen it yet because of the delay. So it does add some complications, but I feel like a delay is at least one route that streamers could go if they really don't want people scouting their information. But as it stands right now, we just get people blurring their screen and blacking out their screen and things like that. And it's definitely, it greatly diminishes the world's first raid race quality. This is meant to be the most hyped, the highest viewership, the highest population, the most eyes that we will ever have in Destiny in one calendar year is when the new raid drops and there is that world's first race. And to have it just be completely blacked out is really frustrating. Like, we want to see what happens when the world's first team clears the witness for the first time ever live. Like, we want to see their reactions. We want to hear that. We want to be a part of that. That is a cool celebration. But of course, it seems like, strategically speaking, if you did just show your gameplay the whole time, you might not get that. You might not cross the finish line. People might steal your strategies and decipher the mechanics before you. So instead, what we have is a sort of dark side, like an underbelly, secretive spies, going around distributing information. And technically, if everyone has spies and everyone has access to the internet, obviously, and can pull up someone's stream, then everyone could decipher and determine how mechanics work. So it does kind of make a level playing field to some degree. It definitely feels wrong when people are able to figure out mechanics and achieve world's first faster than others because of spies.
Over 300,000 viewers on Twitch, and also about 300,000 error codes as well. Network-related issues dominated this race more than anything, and many in the community thought this race should be canceled or restarted due to the issues disproportionately affecting some teams and members of the community. However, scouting no doubt helped as Elysium climbed back here from hours of error codes to claim world's first. But it's important to remember that just because scouting exists and muting exists doesn't mean you're guaranteed a win. Team Ascend had been at the final raid boss for hours, and Elysium won, proving execution and skill still remain the most important attribute in world's first races.
This is a valid point. Just because scouting exists doesn't mean we're seeing like random LFG teams get world's first, right? It's still like the most prepared, the most hardcore dedicated teams doing it. It's just scouting is added as a means of distributing the information so that technically one of the best teams will win.
It would be ignorant for me to pretend that my own creation, Raid Zone, hasn't had some influence on how things would play out. Watching, tracking, and streaming the progress of teams unintentionally serves as a scouting hub for some. And while Raid Zone does so much good and receives a lot of support from those who just want to watch the race, it also does have the possibility to pressurize some teams into obscuring information. Although, with the existence of scouts in the mainstream now, I would argue that this information would just be shared anyway. The King's Fall remaster would be unfortunately the last raid race without having screen or audio obstruction, which is somewhat poetic when you remember that the original King's Fall was the first raid to have the result heavily impacted by information sharing. Now, over 500,000 concurrent viewers tuned in for the Root of Nightmares raid, the highest ever Twitch viewership in Destiny history. But as fans tuned in to track the race and cheer their favorite teams on, most were met with silence and obscured visuals. However, with a raid race as bad as Ron, it's probably not the worst thing in the world it was blocked out anyway. You could argue that this was the natural progression of raid racing. We will break down the morals and opinions around muting and blocking later into the video, but however you feel about it, the stream obstructions still didn't really take center stage on day one, as many were so stunned at how far Root of Nightmares fell below expectations. And with Clan Luminous steamrolling Bungie's poor attempt at a contest raid in just over 2 hours, screens weren't even blocked for that long anyway. At this stage in the video, you may start to realize a pattern in that the competitiveness and extent teams were willing to go to win escalates raid after raid since all the way back in 2015. However,
I would say this, that even though Bungie technically can't fix this problem directly, like they can't make it so you don't obstruct your visuals like your screen, what they could do, and what I've theorized for the community in this because I love to be a part of these raid races, is they could highly incentivize people to stream their gameplay so that way we can know if people are cheating, which is really important. Obviously, we just had the raid race with Desert Perpetual and 70% of the teams cheated, so having everyone stream their gameplay is a nice incentive. You don't have to make it a requirement. Again, you don't have to stream. Some people may not have the internet for that, but if we incentivize them, like for example, let's say the team that gets world's first, they obviously get the belt, they get the emblem, maybe they even get $10,000, like a crazy cash prize. But the only caveat is you only get the $10,000 prize if you stream your clear of the raid from start to finish without obstructing your screen, without muting your comms in any way. So that way your super impressive world's first raid clear can be enjoyed by the entirety of the community. And obviously you're risking a little bit more along the way because, you know, these scouts and these spies are going to steal your information and your strategies and distribute this information around. So it's a little more high risk, but it's also a much higher reward because if you do stream and you follow Bungie's requirements for this, then you win big, right? And this, I don't think anyone would be upset by this because currently it doesn't exist for these raid races. It's just a way to incentivize what we really want from these races for people to stream them, show their screen, not mute their comms, not black out their screen. I really think this is a win overall. I'm sure some people out there will absolutely hate it and protest, but honestly, I do think this is the right way. Let me know what you think about that as an idea down in the comments.
Other factors were somewhat blocking screen hiding, muting, or scouting from becoming mainstream news. Fast forward to June of 2024, and the stage was set for Destiny's grand finale. Bungie had promoted this DLC more than any other, therefore pushing the raid race more than any other. Contest mode was active, and World's First raid belts were the most prestigious to date, as the 6 Guardians to claim it would be immortalized in history as the first team to slay Destiny's decade-long villain and open up the mission that would complete Destiny's infamous Light versus Dark saga. The raid started with many teams blurring buffs and muting audio from the start, which wasn't entirely new, but the amount of teams starting this way and what this would quickly develop into was unprecedented. Teams began to reach the infamous Verity encounter in about 4 to 6 hours into the raid, and as soon as teams realized this was a puzzle-heavy encounter, just like Datto and Vault in 2018, teams began to further limit what viewers could see and hear until the cauldron finally boiled over, and we ended up in a complete blackout. And by the time teams reached the witness, next to no one with any significant progress had their stream watchable. Viewers who had been waiting for this day felt robbed of this moment, and for the first time ever, it felt like there was a complete disconnect between those watching the race and those competing. Because of this, by the time the raid was eventually completed by Team Parabellum, the hype of the moment was all but gone, and there was no buildup of excitement as viewers watched teams draw closer. The fallout and reaction of the Destiny community started to pour in, and they were not happy. Many felt robbed that the pinnacle event in the Destiny calendar had been completely ruined, while others had little to complain about, thus sparking one of the largest debates we have ever seen in Destiny history. By the time Desert Perpetual came out around a year later, large portions of the community were anxious that the screen obscuring would ruin the race right from the very start. While some teams did hide their screens, it quickly became apparent that this raid was mechanically relatively simple, and very much a raid that required perfect DPS execution to complete instead. As such, the role of blurring screens didn't impact the viewing experience anywhere near as much as in Salvation's Edge, with even the eventual world's first team unblurring their screens before completion, once they realized that the mechanics were out in the open. In this final section, I want to really break down both sides of the argument.
Nice. It's cool that at least we got that for the world's first team with Desert Perpetual.
I'm going to try to come at this from a very neutral angle, as my goal is not to change anyone's opinion, but instead outline the argument on both sides and give everyone further points to consider. As in debates like this, people can often tunnel vision into their own argument a bit too much. First and foremost, it's incredibly important to best try and define what a raid day and raid race is meant to be, as this will ultimately be the biggest factor in deciding what side of the fence you will sit on. When Vaulticlass launched in 2014, there was undoubtedly a more community feel to completing the raid, as the concept of a raid race did not exist in Destiny. However, since Forsaken, it's clear Bungie have heavily embraced the competitive side of PvE Destiny. Promoting the world's first race in trailers very much seems like a concerted effort to get more viewers to watch the race on Twitch, whereas the implementation of contest mode, stricter raider rules, and a belt seems like a player-focused effort to make the race more balanced and incentivized for competitors. What's a little bit more up for debate is whether Bungie are implementing these competitor-focused measures to tighten the race for a viewer experience or to upkeep competitive integrity. For the lack of Bungie's interference on the screen hiding front, this has been the smoking gun piece of the evidence leading the argument that the raid is a competitor-first event. As if Bungie felt like the race was becoming something that they didn't want, they would speak up. Despite this, it is easy to also see the disappointed viewer POV too. Raid races have the prestige and hype around them that they do, largely because of the viewers that tune in. It's unlikely raid belts, contest mode, or day one emblems would have been a thing if thousands of viewers didn't tune in for hours upon hours to watch the earlier raids be solved for the first time. Viewers argue that if racers really wanted to hide their strats and refrain from competitive disadvantage, they just wouldn't stream at all, just like Team Parabellum in Salvation's Edge. Large numbers of teams stream because they want to capitalize the increased viewership.
And to be fair, if you don't stream it, you wouldn't have to worry about people stealing your strats, and you could still record it and then upload the footage later, so that way people know you're legit. That's kind of what the strategies of the more hardcore teams do now, other than, I guess, some people obviously blacking out their screens. But like you said, there's a lot of money to be made from this, and this is meant to be like this spectacle event where we want to watch this race as a viewer, and I really wish that all of the teams and all the players saw the bigger picture of it, and that's like, if this happens live, it really boosts Destiny 2 viewership, and it's so much better for everything. Like, it's a really nice spectacle to have, rather than it just turned into a VOD or a video that's uploaded later.
Hype, and ultimately the revenue that descends upon the Destiny community when a world's first race begins.
We've got to have money.
This creates the understandable argument that the racers must choose between views and competitive advantage. While there isn't a monetary prize to speak of, many racers
That's what I'm talking about, monetary prize.
have used successful World's First days to propel their streaming career. With World's
That's
First
true. Glad and Sweatcicle both blew up their streams and their channels because of that World's First Last Wish. Big time, big time.
Raider Sweatcicle even commenting on this in a recent video.
Really wanting to win is one thing, but like understanding that like winning a raid race means a lot more than just winning it, I guess. Or it can. Because like, I don't know, speaking from personal experience, it's like I made an entire career off of it.
However, like how we started this video talking about black screens, your accomplishment can never truly be appreciated in the same way if nobody was able to live that moment with you and put a name to a moment that they will never forget. You'll just become blacked out in their mind about the day. If anything, the same fame you want to acquire is now turned to frustration from the viewer's perspective. There is, however, a counter argument to this from the racer's perspective though. While there is always the narrative that blurring and muting ruins the viewer experience, thousands continue to lurk or chat in the streams of creators, even with the most obscured experiences. Datto still kept thousands of viewers even while muted with full face cam in Salvation's Edge, as did Elysium and Team John, as they stream with completely muted and blurred screens. The argument remains that surely if people were that offended by blurred screens, they just wouldn't watch at all. But the reality is that many still stick through regardless. And when this is the case, why would a racer ever consider changing that? Screen blurring is the ideal middle ground to many racers, as it allows them to maintain a competitive advantage, but then still unmute and unblur to lap up the glory when they do get their completion. And without any Bungie intervention, it's hard to stop anyone from doing that. The reality is that some players play games to the best of their ability to become the top 0.1% and have their name etched into history, and therefore they're willing to do anything it takes to claim that glory. However, when it's the viewers who have ultimately created this high stakes environment, it does seem unfair to completely rob them of the experience of watching it. And it's more than fair to argue that in a time when Destiny is struggling for viewership and a player base, obscuring viewers from engaging with the pinnacle of Destiny content is not only wrong, but it's just a stupid thing to do for the future of the game. How are viewers meant to become more engaged in a game if racers are blocking the viewer from seeing all it has to offer? While trailers help to market a game publicly, watching trusted or respected players play the game is equally, if not more, important at upkeeping the player count and the longevity of the game. Lots of racers want the fame of being a world's first raider, as there are plenty of examples of these teams that have their careers propelled by in-game achievements. But it's more important to note that these players had their careers propelled not only because they were first, but more so because people could watch them be first. And there are plenty of examples with creators like Mactix who have had their careers propelled, not because they won the race, but because they made progress in the raid while not obscuring their screens at all, as his team was one of the first to reach Taniks in Deepstone Crypt, but falling just short of World's First, but claiming a top 6 finish and a lot of long-term viewers and respect. Finally, while no one can argue that streaming unobscured raid racing is a competitive disadvantage, it's actually impossible to quantify how much of a disadvantage it becomes. Ultimately, it's only a disadvantage if you discover information that no one else has. Hiding screens and having scouts doesn't guarantee a raid race victory, with some encounters being easy to solve and hard to execute, like the Witness Contest or Spire of Stars final boss, while others are the polar opposite, being hard to discover and easy to execute, like Sundered Doctrine's final boss. The latter is a strong argument for hiding screens, as teams found themselves stuck for ages trying to solve the mechanic for Kareb in Sundered Doctrine, but cleared it almost instantly once it was discovered. You only have to look at the placement leaderboard to realize that the floodgates really opened once Mario, Luigi, and Biggs discovered how to start and survive the damage phase. Had this team failed, they would have surely lost the race after exposing the mechanic to the whole community, whereas hiding their screen would have provided some insurance for the execution of the mechanic. The former example is a little harder to justify on a screen hiding front. When the mechanic is all but out in the open, and it's a team's DPS, coordination, and survivability that's being tested, there is much less of an advantage gained from hiding your screen, as it tends to rely a little bit more on skill and communication. In both...
It's interesting, the dichotomy between picking one side or the other. It's pretty obvious that hiding your screen is going to be the right decision if you really want to win. But like I said, I really think the whole key is just incentivizing it. Bungie should just incentivize players to not hide their screen. How about this? Like I said, all 6 players, every person that streams their gameplay and doesn't obstruct their screen, like hide the buffs, mute their comms, and streams the whole thing start to finish, 10 grand each person. The full fire team, 60 grand from Bungie. They got the money for that. Don't act like they don't have the money from that. That day alone, they generate more money than any other day in Destiny's history throughout the whole calendar year. So you know they have the money to pay the world's first team 10 grand. They have the money to pay the world's first team 100 grand. That would just be a bit ridiculous. At least give them 10 grand a person if they stream the whole thing. I'm telling you, that fixes everything right off the rip. People will still complain because people always want to complain, but I do think that fixes the majority of things. In this day and age, most people have the internet speeds to stream no matter where you live. If you don't have the internet speeds to stream in 2025, I'm not sure where you live. I know that might be frustrating to hear from me, but I'm telling you, like, the majority of people can stream from where they live. And if you can't, it is super unfortunate for you that you wouldn't have that opportunity. But you got to understand that we live in a day and age where most people have access to the internet and have the ability to stream their gameplay. Even if it's in low quality, they can stream their gameplay. I mean, you know everyone has internet. If they're online playing Destiny 2, they got internet, right? Everyone streaming their gameplay and being highly incentivized by Bungie would be a W in my opinion. And I think everyone wins in that situation. No one loses, except maybe a few extremely rare exceptions with people who have like really bad internet. But every year, the internet infrastructure around the world is just improving more and more fiber optic lines being created. Now you got Starlink up in the sky, beaming internet down onto people. Internet speeds are only getting faster and faster, and eventually it should be a standard that everyone would have fast enough speed to stream, because there would be like nowhere in the world where you would even have internet that slow. We might not be there just yet, but from what I've seen, like the majority of people I know and play with, they could probably stream their gameplay. Let me know what you think about that. If you think it's a little too controversial, feel free to give your thoughts and ideas down below.
Circumstances, however, unobscured screens create a better viewing experience. Watching teams wipe over and over until a team finally survives the onslaught, edges closer phase after phase, and then finally takes down a boss is awesome. It's equally as awesome watching teams struggle for hours to find the key to the puzzle and then watching to see who can race through the completion first, however. Ultimately, however, it's hard to see anything changing anytime soon.
Yeah, this is crazy. So Goth even says right here that he made $20,000 off of ad revenue from King's Fall World First stream in 2015. 20 grand from just the ad revenue. So that will show you, if you do stream and show your screen, if you did get that crazy viewership, you could make 20 grand from that. So now when you think about this cash prize that I'm throwing out, about 10 grand each streamer, it doesn't seem so big, right? You might be thinking to yourself, maybe 10 grand isn't even enough, considering you can make 20 grand just off the ads alone in one day and one stream.
Competitive integrity is clearly important to both racers and Bungie alike, and therefore there's not likely to be any rules that dramatically improve the viewing experience anytime soon. And I do think it's important that viewers understand that a blurred stream is still better than no stream at all. And for the top 0.1% of the community, any advantage that can be taken will be claimed. Despite this, I think it's important that Bungie monitor how this situation develops moving forward. Over the past decade, things have changed a lot in the world of raid racing, and if it continues to travel exclusively towards a purely competitor-focused day, viewers may quickly become alienated to an extreme level and start to completely kill the hype for the best day in Destiny, and consequently damage the future of the game. Whatever the future holds, it's important that both sides of the argument remain respectful to one another, which can be hard online for some people. I hope this video has provided some new points of view for you, and I look forward to grabbing some popcorn and reading the comments down below. Thank you for watching, follow my socials, and make sure you're subscribed.
All right, that was the Destiny controversy Bungie can't fix from Evan F. An excellent video from Evan, as he always does. He puts together these really high quality, high production videos on his channel. I feel like I've already given my thoughts and ideas on how Bungie could fix this by incentivizing it. And it doesn't have to just be a cash prize thing. There's a lot of other ways in which Bungie could promote the streamers or the competitors in this situation. Not everyone's a streamer that competes in these world's first races, but we could incentivize it in so many other ways. And it would be nice if the incentive to show your gameplay was so high and so desirable that no one even thought for a moment about blacking their screen ever again. Because if we do get to that place, the amount of prestige and hype going into these raids is going to absolutely skyrocket. Everyone wants to watch the raid race, and they want to watch it in a clean way. They want to see the team cross the finish line first, and then they want to watch their teams and their friends, their favorite streamers, content creators clear the finish line. And when the raid race is like really short, it doesn't matter as much, I guess. But when the raid races are really long, like you have those like 12+ hour raid races, it matters so much to get to watch every little thing that happens. So I really hope that Bungie does figure out a way to kind of fix this problem, because I do think it matters. I do think this is an important one, but let me know what you think about it down in the comment section below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on. Smash the like button for me. We'll see you in the next one. Later.